Hey everybody, this is TJR. Not long ago on this channel, I posted a video where I asked, should I watch Star Wars, The Clone Wars? Now, if you're new to this channel, welcome. If you've never heard me talk about Star Wars on this channel, I should tell you a little bit about myself. I consider myself an original fan. I was just out of junior high school and was in the summer leading into my freshman year of high school when the original first Star Wars movie hit theaters. We would later refer to this movie as Episode 4, A New Hope, but when it first premiered, for the first couple of years, it was just referred to as Star Wars. This movie came at a very impressionable age and has made a strong impression on me ever since. With that said, I find myself unable to explain why I never watched this animated series that originally premiered back in 2008. For some reason, it just passed me by. And until recently, I was completely unaware of the huge fan following that this series has, and that it was nominated for industry awards, including both the Emmy and Annie Awards. In fact, it wasn't until I got, wind of just all the positive reviews that the final season, season 7, was receiving, that I thought, hey, maybe I need to sit down and watch this. So I watched the first 2 episodes in broadcast order, and then decided, I'm going to watch the rest of this. So I went back, I watched the original movie, which preceded the TV series, and then I watched all of season 1. Oh, and by the way, I do want to take this moment to thank all the viewers out there who alerted me to the fact that the series broadcast order listed on Disney Plus is not chronological, and pointed me to the StarWars.com website that lists the correct order to watch this series in. This made a big difference in how I experienced season 1, so I want to say thank you. So what was my main takeaway from watching Clone Wars season 1? If I had to sum it up, I would say that there is a difference between the idea of the Jedi and the reality of the Jedi. And more on that comment in just a moment. Did I like the show? Well, aside from maybe 1 or 2 cringeworthy episodes, I found Clone Wars Season 1 to be really fun, exciting, and everything I could want from a Star Wars animated series. I liked the new character of Ahsoka Tano. I'll talk about more on her in a little bit also. And I appreciated the amount of imagination that went into the design work for not just the characters, but the various ships, the various droids, aliens, the alien environments, and especially the imagination and design work on the bad guys. Seriously, these were some very fun and enjoyable to watch villains. As I finished this first season, I found myself thinking that this series might actually help improve my experience with the prequels. As an example, I remember the droid army robots in the original prequel films coming off as kind of lame. But within the context of the series, I felt they were mined for great comic effect. So I feel like if I rewatch the prequels, I'm probably going to enjoy the droid army robots a whole lot more. Now, you might respond to that criticism by saying, well, they were always intended to be comical. And if that was the case, well, I think they failed that in the original prequel films. I also recently rewatched a scene from Revenge of the Sith, and in that scene there was a mention of General Grievous by the Mace Windu character, where he refers to him as being cowardly, as always. Well, after watching season 1 of Clone Wars, this line had a lot more resonance than it had previously. And in this brief moment, the TV series that was created after the fact helped to kind of retro upgrade the movie that was created prior. And I have a feeling that the more I watch Clone Wars as I get into the other seasons, the more it's going to improve my experience with the prequels. And by the way, if you are wondering, I do not hate the prequels. I think they have some good things to them, but I admit they have problems. And maybe I'll talk about them in more detail another time. But most notably, I was very intrigued intrigued by some of the questions that this series brings up regarding the clones. What I'm about to talk about was completely just overlooked and sidestepped in the prequel films, but I was surprised to see that issues of identity and individuality were subtly addressed in this first season. And they were done in interesting ways by how, for instance, the clones distinguish themselves from their clone brothers, for instance, in how they cut or wear their hair or dye their hair. And while it would appear that all of them are programmed and kind of have a predisposition to be dutiful, there are those that rebel. Lots of questions get brought up in subtle ways that make me ask, do the clones have the same rights as other sentient life forms in the Star Wars universe, or are they considered to be second-class citizens in the same way that droids have been portrayed since the very first movie?
We don't serve their kind here.
As I watched this first season, I found myself wondering if the series would actually address these ideas in a broader context, as opposed to just subtly bringing them up. And I can't help but feel that there is a lot of untapped potential for some thought-provoking storytelling in regards to this. So I'm going to pause here and say that if this is true, please do not spoil this for me in the comments. But perhaps what I got the most out of watching this first season, and this is going back to my original statement, is the idea of the idealism of being a Jedi versus the actual reality of being a Jedi, and the reality of achieving that Jedi idea. And if you're wondering what I mean by this, think of the first movie and think of that scene where Obi-Wan first tells Luke about the Jedi. In that scene, he waxes poetic about the Jedi, and you get the impression watching that film that they are these perfect white knights of justice and honor. It was somewhere close to the end of the first season that my partner who watched it with me said to me, Ahsoka seems like the most un-Jedi Jedi. And I remarked, well, she's a lot like Anakin, or how Anakin was when he began his apprenticeship with Obi-Wan. Very headstrong, rebellious against the Jedi authority. Before Ahsoka is introduced, we are told by Obi-Wan that she is his new Padawan learner. But when she arrives, she states that she is Anakin's Padawan. Now, I might be reading too much into all of this, but as I watched Obi-Wan's reaction to all of this, there seemed to be a sense of deception in his voice, as if he knew all along that Ahsoka was going to be assigned to Anakin, but told him otherwise so that Anakin wouldn't have time to appeal to Yoda and have her reassigned to someone else or find some other way to avoid being her teacher. I get the feeling that both Obi-Wan and Yoda, who are much more experienced and are both better examples of living up to the Jedi idea, conspired together to have this particular Padawan assigned to Anakin. Why do I feel this way? Just something in the way that Obi-Wan looks at Anakin during these scenes. Once again, maybe it was just me, but there was something in his voice also that portrayed that he was saying one thing, but thinking another thing entirely. In other words, he was lying. I feel that Obi-Wan and Yoda are both aware of the fact that forcing Anakin into the position of mentor, something that he doesn't want, will also force him to take a harder look at his own failings, and that this should hopefully teach Anakin to strive to get closer to the ideas of being a Jedi, the code and ethics of logic, calm, rationality, using those traits, locking into those traits before resorting to impulsiveness and emotionalism. She will learn from him, of course, but Anakin himself, confronted with an earlier and much more rough around the edges version of himself, will learn too. This will teach him humility and drive him to strive closer to the ideas of what a Jedi should be. Anakin may not realize this, but I feel that Obi-Wan and Yoda, at some tenuous remove, are still teaching him. And yes, they're being a little bit deceptive in how they do it. Also in the series, there were some scenes in particular episodes that actually show our main characters dealing with the politics of the Jedi Order. This creates a much more nuanced view of the Jedi. In the first movie, like I said before, Obi-Wan waxes poetic about the Jedi and how great they were. They were the guardians of peace. And you have this idea, this very noble idea of who they were. But in the prequels, we start to see that the Jedi Order is sometimes so focused on the big picture that they become detached from the citizens of the galaxy that they are trying to protect. As a result, they become detached from humanity, and that this, in part, leads to their downfall. I feel that this detachment is explored in a bit more detail in this series, and it sometimes leads to a moral conflict between the needs of the few versus the needs of the many. And Osaka wants to be headstrong when she feels that she knows better than the Order, and she defies them. Her reasons are guided by a sense of moral duty, and Anakin recognizes that in himself, but instead he shows her that sometimes you need to know how to work within the politics of the Jedi in order to achieve a moral victory, proving that the Jedi Order is not always successful at achieving the Jedi ideal either, and that, in fact, it can, in some cases, take a lifetime to achieve the near-perfect idea of what it means to be a Jedi. To relate this to my own personal experience, in my upbringing, I was raised and schooled with a kind of false notion regarding great historical and moral leaders as somehow being morally perfect. And as I grew older, I began to learn that these teachings were deceptions. They were lies, or partial lies at least. I began to learn that all men are flawed and far from perfect. But in the process, I also learned that it is the journey to these higher ideas of morality that these real-life historical figures strive for that is important. In the same way that you and I, hopefully, never stop learning how to be a better version of ourselves, the Jedi never stop learning what it really means to be a Jedi. To sum up, I have really enjoyed watching Season 1 of Clone Wars, and I'm looking forward to watching the rest of the series, and perhaps I will talk about this series again in the future. Let me know your thoughts, leave a comment. If you want to see more content like this, please click like, click subscribe, and smash that bell notification icon. I want to thank you so much for watching. I hope you all stay safe and healthy. Take care. Bye-bye.